everyone, Scott Hansen here from NFL Red Zone. I hope you're checking out 1 hour of 5-Yard Rush, one of the best podcasts on NFL football in the UK.
Hey Rush Nation, how are we going? Here for a quick solo pod, just to give you that quick update on night one. Didn't want to put this out too early, wanted to make sure that people had time to watch the draft that they planned to and make the most of it. So if you haven't watched night one of the draft and you plan to, probably just save this until afterwards. I'm just going to rattle through each pick, give a sort of initial assessment as to what I think to each one. We're going to be talking about this in more detail tonight with Danny and with Hot Seat Mags, Connor McGill of Hot Seat Dynasty. So at the end of the day, we'll be breaking that down more from a wider lens of fantasy and pieces. This is just a really quick hit of each pick. I'm telling you my initial thoughts. I've also written this up, so you can read this in a little bit more detail in the article below. It's on our Patreon. You can sign up to that as well and get exclusive content there. So in terms of pick number one, absolutely no surprise. Fernando Mendoza goes at pick one. We've known about this for months. I think for me, he's a good fit for Clint Kubiak in terms of play action, timing, rhythm, structure. He's not a special athlete, but he is great in the RPO, has good red zone efficiency. He's a really, really tough guy. He's not going to start right away. We expect Kirk Cousins to probably play the first half of the season, but I do think he's going to have a pretty decent fantasy floor, maybe not a high ceiling. So there's little appetite to probably grab him too high in those rookie drafts, but definitely a player that's going to make the Raiders better and probably will have some influence on the likes of other fantasy players on that team, but himself maybe not quite so much there. David Bailey goes to the Jets at 2. For me, feels like the wrong pick. I probably would have taken Arvel Reese, but I think for me, when you're picking that high, you want to pick the generational talents, and I think David Bailey's a very good player. I think he's ready to go now, which is good, and I think he stops you from being bad, but I don't know if he makes you winners. And I think if you're picking 2 in the draft, I'd rather the home run here. I'd rather take the chance to go for the generational talent. Is David Bailey a guy who is a generational talent? No. I think he's very good. I think he's worthy of being a top 10 pick. 2 just doesn't sit right with me in the player that I've seen, but will absolutely walk into this league in September and will be available and will be able to play straight away. That probably benefits the Jets to a certain degree. He's better than what they've got, but he doesn't have that sort of ceiling of being an all-star player. The Arizona Cardinals at 3 did Arizona Cardinal things and took Jeremiah Love, which is just mind-boggling. They don't have a quarterback. They're not going to be able to go and get a good quarterback potentially in this draft now. So he could hold a lot of value in terms of what he'll do, because there's not many talented guys. Probably not the greatest night for Marvin Harrison Jr. owners, but given that there is a lack of production on this offense, he could really get a huge sort of volume, and it's just about how efficient he's going to be, because everyone knows that he's going to get the ball every down. We saw this with kind of Bijan and Saquon when they both entered really bad teams. Their rookie years were good, not necessarily groundbreakingly amazing. Saquon's was better than Bijan's potentially, but yeah, I think for me that's where there's a bit of a discount. He's still going to be an RB1 for sure, and definitely the 101 in rookie drafts. The Titans then go and take Carnell Tate, which feels a bit of a shock. I think for me, I'm just not in on Cam Ward. I don't think Cam Ward is great. I think Tate walks in and he can realistically get a 30% target share, but he's not a dominant yards after the catch guy. He can win vertically, and also he can sort of really be useful and reliable for Cam Ward underneath. He doesn't drop many balls either, so he's going to have that high volume. Is he going to have high efficiency, and is he going to have game-breaking numbers? That's the part I struggle with. He's going to be a really hard player to project, and I am down on Cam Ward. I'm not so sure that Cam Ward is the future of this franchise. So that's going to be interesting to see how this plays out with Tate. We're going to get the acid test this year because if Ward can't do it with Tate, he's not going to be able to do it with anyone. The Giants take Arvil Reese. This is a home run pick. Depending on how they use him, if they use him sort of how similar to how the Cowboys used Micah Parsons, this is going to be ridiculous. Like, this geezer is an absolute weapon. He could go in so many places. He is not a standard linebacker. He can be played absolutely everywhere. He can rush. He can go downhill. He can cover. He can play on the line. He can get you sacks. He's just an absolute machine. The question is he a jack of all trades, master of none? And how do the Giants utilize that? John Harbaugh has a lot of experience with these type of guys. I feel more confident with John Harbaugh there that he will get the best out of Arvil Reese than perhaps I would have done if the Giants had picked him, say, like a year ago. So it'll be interesting to see what happens there. The Chiefs traded up and got Mansour Delane. I don't really understand the trade up. I think he's there at 9. I'm looking at the players in between and the teams in between. I don't think any of these teams were taking corner. So unless they thought that someone was going to jump up and get Delane, then, fine. But I can't see it personally where that was going to happen. This is going to be great for Spagnuolo, who's going to really utilize him. It's a really smart pick. I really like Delane. I think he's a top 12 player. I think 6 is a bit rich, but he's probably not a player I'm in on IDP. I just think for me, he's very reliable. He's a solid player, great football IQ, really smart guy. I just don't think he's going to see the box score quite as much as you will want in fantasy football. So staying away from that a little bit. Washington takes Sonny Styles. This is the most ultimate Dan Quinn pick ever, and Washington fans be so delighted that they got Styles. He's an absolute leader. He's going to transform this defense massively. Great athlete. Still think he needs to develop a little bit in the box, and he is that sort of hybrid weapon where he is a little bit of a linebacker and a little bit of a safety, so he will drop back and cover. This should mean a lot of fantasy points, especially in IDP. So I think Sonny Styles is a player I would be looking at in the high tackle volumes, but he'll also make a lot of those turnover plays as well that will get him in the box score and get him a lot of points. Saints pick at 8, and they take Jordan Tyson out of Arizona State. Feels a little bit like a luxury pick here for a team that, yes, finished the season strong, but have so many questions at quarterback, on this offense completely, and on the defense. I think they needed a lot of work. So, Tyson, when you've got a pretty competent offense in place, minus the quarterback, feels a little reachy. And then you've got Tyson's health issues. This guy gets injured every single year. Mind you, so does Chris Olave. So maybe the idea is that you'll have both of those guys. One of them will always be fit and it will kind of work. I do think he could get wide receiver 1 usage if things with Olave don't quite pan out. But also he's a really good separator as well. He's a really good route runner and he can get the ball deep, which is great. And he will create a lot of that separation that's going to allow him, especially with Chris Olave drawing a lot of attention, to be beneficial and definitely produce some value. But I think he's going to have real boom and bust weeks. I think it's going to be a little ugly for a while. So as a result, I think you're going to see some big upside weeks and some spike weeks. But I think as well, we're going to see some issues as to whether or not he's durable and plays all those games. Moving on to Cleveland Browns, they take Spencer Bono at tackle. Got the tackle they wanted, traded down, got extra picks. It's just smart. It's just what they do, isn't it? The Browns, in terms of the front office, they do tend to do the draft quite well. Love a trade down. I feel like he's the perfect tackle for them and what they want, and he fits this scheme. And to get extra picks and still get the guy you wanted is absolutely brilliant. There's lots of talks about arm length. I'm not overly worried about that, but it's probably something to monitor. I think it matters a little bit more at tackle than it does on the D-line. But for me, he's going to be a big addition to the run game, and he's going to be huge for Quinton Judkins, which I think is the big arrow up here with a pick like this. Then the Giants, they get Morigoa at 10. It feels like a bit of a reach for me here. I think he's an excellent player. I think, I look at what he does. Again, he's going to free up the run game. He's going to be really powerful. I just think for me, with the way that he is coordinated, he's probably a guard. He's not a tackle. And so getting a guard at 10 feels like a reach. And the other part of this as well, with knowing the Cowboys are after you and they get who they take, which I'll mention in a second, and being a divisional rival, it kind of feels like I'm not as excited about this pick as perhaps other Giants fans are, and that's fine. I think he's a very good player. I think he's. It's just I feel like I don't think I can ever kill a team for investing in the offensive line, especially a team that's been that bad on the offensive line for so many years. So I don't necessarily hate it. I don't want to go that far, but I feel like it's a slight reach to get a guard at 10, whereas I think you could have maybe gone in a couple of different directions. But at the end of the day, he is probably one of the better O-line players left on this board. And therefore probably does what you need him to do. And he does have that capability to go and play at tackle. Dallas take Caleb Downs at 11. For a team that was absolutely dreadful on third down, last in third down, last in points allowed, last in passing yards allowed, 30th in turnovers. Like, he's just absolutely criminal at how bad he is everywhere, or how bad they've been everywhere. I think for me, it makes a lot of sense to look at what they, to get players that are going to help them. This is an elite player, an elite DB here, who's really going to help them in run support, who's going to help them with blitzes. He's really going to lead the defensive side of this team, and they really need that, and they've missed some leadership there with Micah Parsons leaving. So really big fan of this pick for the Cowboys. Dolphins picking at 12. They get Caden Proctor. I mean, they need massive help on the O-line, and he's a huge guy. It's going to be massive for Devon Achane. Like, Devon Achane owners are really going to look at him and pay attention to what he does, because I look at what Devon Achane does, and he needs space, and what he didn't get last year was people mauling in front of him, and that's what Caden Proctor is going to do. So it's a massive arrow up for Devon Achane owners. What I will say is, I think for me, he's probably, again, more of a guard than a tackle. And then we get the real big shock of the night, which was Ty Simpson going to the Rams at 13. It's the first time since the mid-'60s with Bart Starr and his replacement that a team with the reigning NFL MVP at quarterback take another quarterback. Now, I'm kind of in the camp of, I don't think Ty Simpson is as good as other people think he is. I think for me, there's some limitations. He's not played a lot of football. You're talking about a guy who played, I think, maybe 15 games in college. I don't think that's enough. I would like to see players get more. He waited a very long time at Alabama, and I get it. It's a great school. Like, it's hard to break through there, but at the end of the day, it took him a long time to break through, and it's going to take him a long time to break in the NFL. And when I think about his journey, by the time he gets to be playing in the NFL, he's going to play 2 years out of 7. That's a concern for me. That really is a concern. So I look at that and think, I think he's going to go too high in dynasty drafts for me to probably take him. I would value him as a third-round flyer. I just don't think this pick will ever come to fruition. I think there's a lot of reasons for this, and it's not the guy, it's the situation that Matt Stafford, if Matt Stafford is healthy, Matt Stafford's going to play as long as he wants. We're looking at the minimum of 2 years. If that's the case, and Stafford plays 2 years, when he leaves, I think McVay leaves. And then I think it's the next guy's project. And this guy didn't draft Simpson, doesn't have any affinity to Simpson. So I look at that and go, yeah, something I'm a little bit concerned about. So yeah, that's me on Ty Simpson. I just probably not in on fantasy. I understand the pick. There's probably a bit more logic there than I'm giving credit for, but I just can't get there on him as a fantasy pick and think that I doubt he probably has much of an impact in the NFL as a result. Baltimore go Vivega Ione, who this guy's just huge. I mean, like, he's a Linderbaum replacement. He's going to really help. Derrick Henry's going to help Lamar. He's going to, they lost a huge piece in free agency in Linderbaum to the Raiders. He's just come straight in and replaces that. Makes complete sense. This is like a lock, stock, home run pick for that situation, and he's going to do exactly what they need. It's a big hole for them in how they run. It's a very Ravens pick. It makes a lot of sense. Tampa Bay Buccaneers then go and make a very Tampa Bay Buccaneers pick and get Ruben Bain. Now, Ruben Bain, for me, was a top 5 player in this draft. I don't understand. I can understand how the board's fall and how he's got to 15. But for me, you shouldn't be letting players like this fall into teams that are going to absolutely weaponize him. I see him as a real disruptor and a game changer for the Buccaneers, who have struggled to get any pressure on the edge since Shaq Barrett the year before the Super Bowl year, and then any pressure from the Super Bowl year onwards. So lot has been said about his arms, very short arms. Shaq Barrett got 19.5 sacks in this system. He had half an inch longer arms than Ruben Bain. It's not going to be an issue. Todd Bowles is going to manufacture him. He's going to absolutely weaponize Ruben Bain. I don't think he's a huge sack guy. I think in IDP, he's probably not going to hit the box score maybe quite as much, but I think he's going to rack up the tackle for losses. I think he's going to be a real disruptor, and I think he's going to free up Yaya Diaby to share this workload, as we kind of saw in Miami, that he was getting double teamed a lot, and it allowed his teammate to go ahead and get a lot of the production and the sacks that allowed him to get drafted in the first round, and we'll get to him shortly. So huge pick for the Bucs. Think it's a absolute home run pick here. And the Jets get Kenyon Sadiq out of Oregon. Now, I hated this pick when it happened. It didn't make a lot of sense. When they do what they do later in the draft and we get to it, all of a sudden this pick is a lot better. So in isolation, not a huge fan. When you take into the context the whole night of what they got, it's a very good pick. And that's kind of where you want to be really careful in how you're judging these. If you're judging them individually, they're going to look a bit different than all the sum of the parts. I think for me, he's a huge yards after catch guy. He's not a huge guy, but he's an absolute freak athlete. He's one of the fastest tight ends that have ever run the combine. So I'm a big fan of what he can do and what he'll do. Is he going to do well under Geno in year one? Probably not. He's a rookie tight end that I probably won't be taking too much off. In Dynasty, I think he's probably going to get overpaid. And he's going to be a really hard player to take in that top 5, top 6 range because of him being a tight end. But I think, and not knowing who the QB is going to be and how long it's going to take to actualize, but I do think he could get targets. What I will say is this is probably the end of Mason Taylor as a fantasy analyst. That you can just ship him straight off onto the scrap heap. Detroit Lions at 17 take Blake Miller as a tackle. Again, you're talking a guy, just pedigree, 54 starts in college, 3,700 snaps. This geezer's not, he's not, like a huge, athletic stud, but he's just so sharp, really athletic. And he's just going to come straight in. He's going to move Penn Isil to the left, and they're just going to keep cooking. I'm a big fan of this pick. And then this is where things got a little weird with the Vikings. They take Caleb Banks out of Florida, defensive lineman. This guy played 3 games last year due to foot issues. He started to get healthy, and then he re-injured his foot before the combine, so he didn't do half the activities at the combine. He's not going to be available to even participate in practice until late June, July. So he's probably not going to be overly ready for the start of the season. He could be. He's a huge guy, 6'6", 327, 35-inch arms. But the problem is if you're a big guy like that and you've got foot issues, those foot issues could actually keep sustaining. As we've seen, he came close to returning, then got that injury. This just feels like the swing of all swings. If he goes healthy and if he then goes on to produce better than he did in college, this guy could potentially be an all-pro. It needs so many things to happen. I think this is just an absolute punt by the Vikings. And they had a player who was absolutely perfect for them, who slides all the way to 25, who was the Harrison Smith sort of replacement. And they've decided to forego that for this. Feels like an absolute bust pick waiting to happen, if I'm honest. The Panthers get Monroe Freeling as a tackle out of Georgia. And again, really solid guy, can play left tackle, can play right tackle. He gives you a lot of versatility. He does need a bit of work. I think he needs coaching up too. And he's going to be a slow burn. I think his rookie year is going to be okay. I think he'll get better as he goes through, and he will help Carolina. And I think he's going to help improve this offense significantly. But I think it's going to be one of those. He's going to go quietly under the radar. He's going to be okay, and then he's going to get better year 2, year 3, year 4. I don't think he's going to make that big splash out of the gate. The Eagles at 20 trade up, and they take the pick of the Cowboys, their dreaded rivals, to take Mekhi Lemon. And I don't understand how this pick ever happened. Like, I would love to know what the Cowboys were doing when they made this trade, because they must have had offers. I would have been talking to the Jets. I'd have been talking to Miami. There's several teams I would have been talking to who needed a wide receiver here. The Browns, who just acquired a load of picks. Maybe even the Bills. Like, there's so many teams here I could have called and just gone and shopped around to get a better deal than deal with the Eagles, who are your divisional rivals. Their biggest positional need at this point of the draft was wide receiver. You've got one of the top 3 wide receivers who has somehow magically fallen to this position of the draft, and then you execute the trade. The Steelers were on the phone to Mekhi Lemon at 21, thinking that the Cowboys were going to pick a defensive player here, not knowing that they were trading. So that when the Eagles tried to call, he was already engaged. He was on the phone to the Steelers, thinking he was going to get picked. It's just cuckoo that this trade was allowed to happen, and it's just the Cowboys doing Cowboys things. It's dumb, it's stupid, and you've just armed your rivals with a huge weapon. It makes no sense to me at all. Mekhi Lemon was probably my favorite receiver of this class in terms of, I think it was close, in terms of his ability to separate, his yards after the catch. And, he can go into many different facets of the game. He will have some spike weeks and he will have some flat weeks for sure. But I think with Sean Mannion as the new OC, I think you can see that Mekhi Lemon could be a significant player moving forward. And he lands in a great situation. He probably, of all the 3 top wide receivers, lands in the best spot with a clearly defined role. And the Cowboys are going to be kicking themselves for years here. They really should be. The Steelers then, after getting snubbed, take Max Iheanacho, who didn't play football until college. He was from Nigeria. He played soccer until he was about 13, and played basketball. And then literally it was his Senior Bowl where he took on all the best of the best defensive linemen in the country, and he put them all on their backsides. He had an absolutely brilliant Senior Bowl, had a great process through the combine, and that's made him a first-round pick. The problem is that none of that much is on tape, and he hasn't really played the game a long time, like 2 years, maybe 3. So he's still learning the position. He's still got a lot of things he needs to learn. So you're kind of hoping that with the Steelers, they're looking at him thinking he's got everything he needs to be great. We'll teach him everything else. The Chargers, who needed O-line help, kind of the run of O-line has really killed them at this point. Surprisingly, didn't trade up. Instead, they take the next best edge off the board, who is Akeem Mesidor, who is the teammate of Ruben Bain, who got the better production than Ruben Bain. But the reason he's gone later is a couple of things. One, he's 25. That's a really old age to be entering the NFL. It does limit his upside quite significantly. I also think for me, he's someone who perhaps is more of a rotational piece. And I think he's someone who is going to produce now, and he's going to produce good sacks now. But I think it's a real short-term pick. I don't think he's a player who's going to be still doing this in 10 years' time. He's a sort of player I think he's going to have a good 5-6 year career, then find himself on the outside looking in, made himself some money and moved on. So I do like this for the Chargers. I'm surprised they didn't react to the O-line moves of all the O-line players going faster, because I think they've really paid for this now, as the drop-off now to O-line is significant. You might not see an O-lineman go in the second round. It's that big a drop to who is left. The Cowboys take Malachi Lawrence. Now, I went to UCF. I watch UCF games. I'm just not there on Malachi Lawrence. I'm just not there. ultimately, I think he's a good player in terms of he has explosive traits. He can really sort of explode. But for me, the problem I have is he's just so unrefined. He's not played against elite competition. He doesn't know what it's like to be a top class defensive player, and there aren't that many defensive leaders in Dallas. You're basically asking him to replace Micah Parsons. He's just not that. Like, he's not that player, and you don't have enough experience around to get him to that level. I think this could potentially be a horrible pick. I could eat my words and could be totally wrong, but I'm not here for it. The Cleveland Browns take Casey Concepcion out of Texas A&M. I struggle with this pick. Now, they needed wide receiver. I look at the wide receivers who are still here at this point. There's another wide receiver who goes in this draft a few picks later, and he is the guy who I absolutely would have taken here. What you didn't need is the Cleveland Browns when you've got the risky quarterback play that you have with no pathway to fix that quarterback problem this year. With a young offensive line that you're trying to fix, you've let all your tackles go, you've brought a new tackle in, is to bring in a player who is a developmental wide receiver. And that's exactly what this guy is. Don't get me wrong. If he catches the ball, he's gone. He's a home run hitter. He separates. He can absolutely destroy teams at the line of scrimmage or down the field. He can really do a lot. Two things that go against him. One, he's not a big wide receiver. He is going to limit what he will do. So you are going to have to scheme up specifically for him. I don't know if they've got the tools in place to help him to do that. This guy also dropped 19 balls in college, like in 3 years. That's huge. That's a huge amount of drops. He had over 7 last year. So you're talking about a step up in competition. So potentially more drops, more pressure, less time, and with unstable quarterback play behind him. Yeah, I just could be a PPR sleeper, but he could also bust pretty heavily. I have some concerns with that pick. The Bears take Dylan Friedemann. Really love this pick. He's such a good player. Like, how the Vikings pass on him is just, he's a Harrison Smith replacement in waiting, is like archetypal, is the same player, plug and play, done. I think he's a top player. I really do. I think the Bears have done so well with this pick. Like, it's an incredible pick. IDP wise, he's got some value. I don't think he's one I'll be chasing, but really smart safety who could also drop back into coverage. Really good fast processor of the game, really versatile. I just, he's more of a guy who's going to break up plays than make plays, but I absolutely love what he does, and he's a real leader back there. I think he's brilliant. The Texans trade back into, or trade up, and they get Caleb Rutledge. Again, a position they need. I understand it. It makes sense. He's a good player. He is only a guard. You've paid up for a guard. It's just, I get there's very limited offensive line players here, but so maybe it kind of makes sense given how the draft is going, but it feels like a lot to pay up for him. But he can start day one. He's tough. He's a great guy. Tape's great. Everything around him is good. So yeah, I kind of understand it. If they hadn't paid up for him and they just got him, then I get it. But I think they probably looked at New England and felt like they had to go and get him and get ahead of New England, which makes sense. The Miami Dolphins going to draft Chris Johnson, corner out of San Diego State. I think Miami have had a bad night. There's nothing fundamentally bad with the players they picked, but I think Chris Johnson is there in round 2. This does feel like a reach. He's a very versatile player, but I'm not sure where he fits into this scheme. I think he's probably a nickel, maybe plays a bit of safety. I think it depends on the package and where Hafley wants him to be. And I know that Hafley likes flexible DBs, but kind of feels like a jack of all trades, master of none situation again. And I don't really love it when you get players like that. And he's a player where I think you could have waited for it and got. I don't think there was a clamor to get Chris Johnson. Not a huge fan of that pick. The Patriots go and get more offensive line help, and they get Caleb Lonmu. or Caleb Omu, who, again, you look at what happened in the Super Bowl, you look at how many times Drake May was put on his backside, and they went, well, we need to go and get some help. And so that's what they've done. I think he's going to go and play right tackle. He's kind of the last offensive lineman here. That's the big area of weakness for the Patriots. You filled the need. I don't think there's another offensive lineman that's available to like a round 3 value now. So makes sense, kind of took need over anything else. And yeah, I think he'll do a good job. And I think if you can protect Drake May with AJ Brown coming in June, that's going to be huge for them. Kansas City Chiefs at 29 take Peter Woods again. Another tackle, another really solid player. And I think it's a solid player who can come in and, again, they couldn't get off the field on third down. That's why they lost a lot of games, and I think he's going to help disrupt. I think he's going to help a great deal. So I'm really intrigued to see how he helps, but I think with him and Chris Jones, he's not going to get double teamed at all. He's going to just come in and really fix a lot of the problems that the Chiefs had last year. So I love that pick, really. The Jets at 30 get Omar Cooper Jr., which I think is a great pick. Like, the Jets, I think, have done really, really well with the picks that they've manufactured here. They've traded up from 33 to 30. And I think this is a great pick. This makes the Sadiq pick look a lot more sensible. I think he's like Deebo Samuel light. You have to scheme a lot of things for him, but he's a real playmaker, great yards after the catch, competitive. I also think for him, why I really like him is he's a good leader, great character guy. I don't know how, I'm not a big expert on Jets character players, but I feel like having him, he's a good character guy. I think he could get some nice touches, manufactured touches here. But I think I'd be looking more what he does next year. But Omar Cooper definitely moves up my board a little bit. But you're kind of having to hope into the unknown that they really address the QB position and do it well, which is always risky when it comes to the Jets. The Titans trade back into the first round and get Keldrick Falk. Again, I think he's a really good player. I really like him. He can do a lot. He's 21. He's learning the game. He's got brilliant motion. He's 6'6". He's 270. The problem is that he's never produced in the box score. Now, in fantasy football, when you've got that sort of player who has all the tools but doesn't deliver the numbers, you're kind of betting on that happening. He's a developmental player. He's going to take time, but you get the 5-year contract. You get a bit of extra time on him. I kind of like it for the Titans, especially as they're not going to win immediately. The pressure's going to be off to really develop him. And I think for me, he's someone who is very young and can grow into be a really good player, but it's going to take some time. And the last pick of the night did not disappoint, but the Seattle Seahawks taking Jadarian Price, running back out of Notre Dame. It's the first time in NFL history that the first 2 running backs off the board have come from the same school. Obviously massively hindered by being behind Jeremiah Love after tearing his Achilles as a freshman. Which means he's got limited production. He's been second fiddle to Jeremiah Love. We haven't really seen what he does in the receiving game all that much. We do know he could add value as a returner. I think he's going to need a bit of time to really acclimatize to the NFL. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with Charbonnet. I still project Charbonnet to be the back. I think a lot of people are going to value Jadarian Price because of the fit, because of the need that he's going to scale up boards really, really quickly. I would be really cautious that because of the lack of playing, I'm just a little bit cautious that the price could get away from us very, very quickly here. And he could be priced out of a position that kind of makes sense. But we'll talk more about that one tonight. But I think makes sense, solid pick, makes sense for the situation. Strongest need, running back position absolutely falls off a cliff after this. I don't doubt the quality of the pick. I don't think it's a bad pick. I just think for fantasy football, I think that people are going to get heavily carried away with this pick, see him as the next Kenneth Walker, which, let's not forget, wasn't a hugely valuable fantasy football role, like a mid to low end RB2. I think that's his ceiling. I don't think that's his floor. I think that's his ceiling. So a little bit concerned there. So again, just don't run away with the price too much and don't fall in love with the fit. Last word on this just came in. That's why I looked at my phone as this was coming in. Malik Neighbors has done an interview and commented on the drafting of Arvel Reese. And he says, don't get me wrong, I love the player, but where do you play? You want to be on the outside and rush, but we drafted somebody last year to do that same position. So we're talking about Malik Neighbors really unhappy with the player who has been drafted at 5 overall. He clearly wanted some help on the outside, and he clearly had his ideas of where he wanted. So interesting take, interesting thoughts from him there, and that's going to do it for this. We're going to be back in a few hours. I wanted to break this down. I wanted to get this out to you. I hope you found this useful. Read the article below. I think that's going to help a great deal. But we'll see you in a few hours. Thanks for everything. And until then, don't forget, as always, keep rushing.
Hey everyone, Scott Hansen here from NFL Red Zone. I hope you're checking out 1 hour of 5 Yard Rush, one of the best podcasts on NFL football in the UK.